Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. And being the wealthiest person in the world by virtue of being a serial entrepreneur and starting lots of companies, Elon is as famous for one-liners and short quips about the nature of wealth and entrepreneurship as he is about his outsized wealth. There's an interesting quote attributed to him in a 2017 article in Business Insider about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I found this quote to be really interesting and something that promotes an idea of entrepreneurship and the grit and toughness associated with it that isn't exactly true, I think, if you really dig into it. So let's take a quick quote from this article. Quote, "On one occasion, while being visited at his Tesla factory by students of Draper University, he was asked by one of the students, 'As an established entrepreneur, what is the number one tip you have for all the young entrepreneurs waiting to start up?' Here's his reply. 'I think it's very difficult to start companies. It's quite painful. A friend of mine has a good phrase for doing a startup. It's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. If you are wired to do it, then only do it, not otherwise. So think of it this way. If you need inspiring words, don't do it.'" End quote. Musk is no stranger to bold and controversial pronouncements, and this one in particular is one of those that either has a nugget of truth wrapped in a lie, or perhaps it's the opposite. It's a lie wrapped around by the truth. But in either case, what Musk is saying here has elements of what is real and perhaps some delusions around what is not. Entrepreneurship is a life of difficulty, privation, scarcity. You live a Spartan lifestyle. I talked briefly in the last episode of the podcast about eating ramen noodles every day and not necessarily going out and living on air mattresses and in people's basements, and your office is somebody's garage. It's not glamorous. It's long hours and sleepless nights and driving a 1988 Toyota Celica to wherever it is you're going and just really living a hand-to-mouth kind of lifestyle until you get things up and running to where someday, in some orgastic future, maybe you succeed. But, statistically speaking at least, you likely do not. Elon is right about the fact that it's a hard thing to be an entrepreneur. But there's this idea he puts out there with this quote that people either have the ability to deal with that or they don't. And if people require encouragement and kind words and inspiration and really any energy from the outside that doesn't come within, your own lion heart that makes you want to do this thing that you just must do, that you're driven to do, then you shouldn't bother with entrepreneurship. It's not for you. You don't have the stomach for it. You either have it or you don't. And it's here that Elon is a little bit, if not a lot bit, full of it. What does it mean to get inspiration and encouragement from people outside of yourself and from forces outside of yourself? Does it mean just getting participation trophies for everything you do and getting pats on the back and attaboy and good job and you're so smart and you can do anything you want? You can be president of the United States. You can be the richest person in the world. You can do anything. Is that the only way that encouragement and inspiration manifests itself? For some people that may be true, but for someone like Elon, with his particular set of circumstances and background, sometimes inspiration is just the air you breathe and the water you swim in as you come up. And when you hear people like Elon Musk talk about what's born within you and the idea that you don't need any encouragement from the outside and it's just your drive and your individual will, it's important to look at the background of someone like that to see how true that conceit really is. And since we're so fortunate to kind of live in the future where you can just pull up information on just about anybody at will, we're going to do precisely that for Mr. Musk, courtesy of our good friends at Wikipedia. So here's a little quote about Elon Musk's early life. And I know that a lot of people listening to this really don't want, they don't care about Elon Musk. He's a billionaire. He's a kind of a jerk off, to say the very least. But I'm going to ask you to bear with me and listen closely to what this guy's, especially his early life, was like. So strap in for just a second and let's just take a deep dive into who this guy actually is. Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa. His mother is May Musk, a model and dietitian born in Saskatchewan, Canada, but raised in South Africa. His father is Errol Musk, a South African electromechanical engineer, pilot, sailor, consultant, and property developer who once purchased a stake in a Zambian emerald mine near Lake Tanganyika. Musk has a younger brother, Kimball, born in 1972, and a younger sister, Tosca, born in 1974. His maternal grandmother, Joshua Halderman, was an American-born Canadian, and Musk has British and Pennsylvania Dutch ancestry. The family was wealthy in Elon's youth and, quote, owned one of the biggest houses in Pretoria, end quote. After his parents divorced in 1980, Musk mostly lived with his father in Pretoria and elsewhere, a choice he made 2 years after the divorce and subsequently regretted. Musk has become estranged from his father, whom he describes as, quote, a terrible human being. Almost every evil thing you could possibly think of, he has done, end quote. He has a half-sister and a half-brother on his father's side. Around age 10, Musk developed an interest in computing and video games and acquired a Commodore VIC-20. He learned computer programming using a manual and, by age 12, sold the code of a basic-based video game he created called Blastar to PC and Office Technology magazine for approximately $500. An awkward and introverted child, Musk was bullied throughout his childhood and was once hospitalized after a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs. He attended Waterkloof House Preparatory School and Bryanston High School before graduating from Pretoria Boys High School. Aware it would be easier to enter the United States from Canada, Musk applied for a Canadian passport through his Canadian-born mother. While awaiting the documentation, he attended the University of Pretoria for 5 months, allowing Musk to avoid mandatory service in the South African military. Musk arrived in Canada in June 1989 and lived with a second cousin in Saskatchewan for a year, working odd jobs at a farm and a lumber mill. In 1990, Musk entered Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. 2 years later, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, graduating in 1997 with a Bachelor of Science degree in economics and a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics. In 1994, Musk held 2 internships in Silicon Valley during the summer. At energy storage startup Pinnacle Research Institute, which researched electrolytic ultracapacitors for energy storage, and at the Palo Alto-based startup Rocket Science Games. In 1995, Musk was accepted to a Doctor of Philosophy program in material science at Stanford University in California. Musk attempted to get a job at Netscape, but never received a response to his inquiries. He dropped out of Stanford after 2 days, deciding instead to join the internet boom and launch an internet startup. Now, ask yourself, what's it like to have a father who is an engineer, a pilot, a sailor, a consultant, a property developer, and a speculator in rare earth minerals in the African interior? What's it like, despite the fact that your father is a notoriously horrible person, to nevertheless watch that horrible person get everything he wants? To have yourself grow up in the largest house in the capital of South Africa during apartheid? What's it like to be able to attend elite universities, in one case, specifically to avoid the hoi polloi in military service? That's about the richest thing you can think of, besides the notion of spending some time living with your second cousin in Saskatchewan, working odd jobs on farms, which is kind of the other rich people hobby. Elon might like to say that entrepreneurship is not for people who need encouragement from the outside, But it's important to look at Elon's life and realize that he spent his entire childhood and early adulthood, if not in a loving family situation, at least a charmed family situation, where every day of his life, the notion was reinforced that the world was his to conquer. Of course, that is a very toxic and nefarious and even destructive form of inspiration and encouragement, but it is inspiration and encouragement nonetheless, without which it is safe to say that Mr. Musk would likely be retreading tires down here with the rest of us. The rest of us who would set out into the world to do social entrepreneurship or even regular get rich entrepreneurship, we need those words of encouragement as a substitute for the I own everything and can do anything I want attitude that people born into wealth are bathed in for decades of their formative years. Encouragement is necessary for the development of any talent. It doesn't have to be a talent that you just put towards getting rich or changing the world, but it can be any talent. Just being a good storyteller or a good writer or just a good friend, even. I think about the thing that perhaps I'm known for and will probably be known for if I'm known for anything, which is my ability to write. And as much as I might say that maybe I have a gift for it, it took the encouragement of people like my mother, who couldn't wait to see what books I would write as a preteen, or my impossible to please college English professor, Todd Solomon, who, gave D's and C's to everybody. But in the notes in my papers, he would say, I don't know how you managed to write with this degree of erudition and casual colloquialness, or whatever the heck he said, but that meant everything to me. And without that encouragement, I might have just let whatever this natural muscle that I have for writing just atrophy and do something else that maybe I would have just been mediocre at. Everybody has talent, and those talents have to be unlocked. Some people, like Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos, like people who are born rich, just live in an environment where they understand that they can do what they want. Anything they want to explore, anything they want to do will be unencumbered, and they can just go ahead and do it. Nothing will get in your way. But the rest of us, who aren't born with that level of privilege, who aren't born with that level of access, we need something maybe a little more direct, because we don't live in that environment where the encouragement is just everywhere, where we're surrounded by our pilot, engineer, sailor fathers and our giant houses, and people living the good life doing more or less as they please. So I would like to address specifically the would-be underprivileged, world-changing social entrepreneur out there, and implore you not to listen to this man and his blithely self-unaware ideas that the ability to change the world and have the work ethic and the inspiration is something you are just born with or not. Because it's not true. Anyone who would dare to make some change in the world has to be convinced that they can and that they must. And that convincing doesn't come from within. It comes from the environment that you're in. And if you're not like Elon Musk and you're just born into that environment where it just surrounds you naturally, you need it from other people. You need it from friends, you need it from family, you need it from supporters and well-wishers and contemporaries and associates. You need those pats on the back and those attaboys and you can do it, and there's nothing wrong with needing that. Everybody needs it. Even Elon needs it, whether he wants to admit it or not. And it's also important to remember that there's other people around us that need that encouragement too. And we have to be careful not to underestimate our ability to influence other people with kind words of encouragement. Because you never know who is just one passing compliment away from either continuing on and doing something incredible in the service of other people, or packing it in and saying, I was never good enough anyway. So, how about we not be convinced to surrender the levers of social change to the likes of Elon Musk just because he wants to say those things belong to a hereditary nobility? Screw that guy. Do what you have to do and get whatever it is you need to succeed.